to see this video. 3 or 4 or thereabouts times that I have been before a group of people trying to teach, explain, sell an idea, and thereby hope that you get some appreciation for my platform performance. The first one that you'll see is about 4 years old, but I'm talking to a group of candidates for a police chief's position in a town in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and I'm trying to explain to them what the assessment center selection device that I'm implementing is all about. I'm teasing out from them certain ideas, trying to get them to buy into the concept. I've just got through talking about what all goes into the job, and then asked them to put a little bit more, and one of them said something about stress, and I said, you're right, that's an integral part of the job. And furthermore, and then I carried right on through and let them develop some of the other ideas. That's going to be the first one you see in just a moment. You've got to have tolerance for stress in a position like this. Where do I find a measure of your tolerance for stress looking at your application or your resume? It's not there. You got one? Think of a trait.
You just took it.
The stress one? Think of another one. Give me one.
Communication skills.
Sure. We're in that process right now. I may be the most knowledgeable police professional person possible, and yet if I can't communicate my message to somebody, then the whole thing is going down the tube. And I have seen very, very capable people at all sorts of levels never be able to get their program into practice because they couldn't communicate. They couldn't articulate what they want. So they got to be able to, in a communicative stance, both orally and written, communicate with people. You thought of one?
Thinking of a way out of it. I think having enough, willpower to initiate new ideas.
Okay, I'll say something other than willpower. I'll say something like insight, perception, and then analytical abilities necessary to pull things together and get those new ideas into practice. Oh, I can find that in your application somewhere, I'm sure. I'll look through your application and no, you can't measure that. Now, applications are important. They tell basically what you have done and where you are currently in your professional career. But at a certain point in time, those leave off. And they leave off in such a way that you don't know what somebody's capabilities are until you get more insightful measures to them. We're going to try through the assessment center technique to get some insights into several functions and facets of your abilities. We're going to look at leadership. We're going to look at effective meeting and dealing with other people. We're going to look at communication. We're going to look at tolerance for stress. We're going to look at professional knowledges and competencies. We're going to look at analytical abilities and perception, and that's what has been named so far. You came in cold, but what we're of traits, skills, knowledges, abilities that this sort of methodology will touch on. How adequately we touch on it is a function of how well we've done our work and where you are in consideration of the process. Okay, that's an assessment center as such. In doing that, we will probably take about 4 or 5 different looks at things. First of all, we are prepared to offer initially a cognitive skills examination. Pencil and paper, multiple choice, information from pretty current literature regarding police administration, police supervision, and then disadvantage to a certain degree for some of you, some current looks at Texas peculiarities, penal codes, code of criminal procedures and all. Now, I don't think any of those are so disadvantaged that you can't pick them up. I think that the penal code in the state of Illinois is very similar and compatible to the penal code of Texas. I'm not asking you to quote chapter and verse. I'm asking you to look in generalities and say, this sort of element would be, and you pick out a choice. So yes, it gives some disadvantage and some advantage for not being peculiarly local, but after all, we are local, and we've got to look at the local scene too. I don't know how much that will weight against you, because that's probably the least important facet of your ability to do the job, and that's being able to quote from the penal code or something, and I won't ask you to quote necessarily anyway. We'll do that. Second part, we'll do an in-basket examination, a little bit differently than what the typical in-basket is. I was talking to somebody the other day and said something about in-basket, and they said, well, what is an in-basket? I said, boy, I wish I were back in my office. I would show you. On the left of my desk is everything that somebody wants me to do piled up there. On the right of my desk is an almost empty thing. It's an out basket, because when I do it, I move it over here, and then someone else does it. That's that thing that sits on the desk that says these are assignments that need to be done. And daily, I look at that thing. Some of them are very critical assignments. Some of them are urgent assignments, and some of them are routine, mundane, incoming mail, file 13 material, and on like that. Well, that goes into decision-making and decisiveness. And we'll put you under a restricted amount of time to deal with that and say, I've got to make decisions on that. I've tried to structure that a little bit differently than what the typical one is, because normally they're open-ended, and you get by pencil and paper to write out all your answers. That takes me a long time to look at, and I don't have that time, so I've structured it in such a way that it's a multiple choice format also. You look at the item, you know what it is, and then you answer according to the options that I provide you. Secondly, I tried to structure it in such a way that I would tap what I think would be the scene in Richland Hills, because to be my idea is it's kind of a working chief. To be the chief, you've got to be able to also know what everybody else is doing. So I've structured it as if you were an administrative sergeant to a larger department, and you're taking orders both from the chief, captains and lieutenants, and requests from subordinates and everything, which is kind of the function that you'll find here, I believe. Then second half of the day, we'll go into a leaderless group exercise where all of you get to meet and deal as peers in some common problems and seek solutions to those problems. Then I'll give you something on the way of a peer and self-evaluation. Then the last thing is we will videotape an exercise where you're called upon to respond spontaneously to an interviewer. The local television station puts the mic in front of your face, and the camera starts, and they give you some questions. You got to respond, because many times that happens, and it gives the people here an opportunity to evaluate your ability to meet and deal with issues on your feet. Now, that's the spectrum of the day. You question about that, or a concern or an interest on anything?